Most people believe they have plenty of time. When they're young, the future feels endless. There's always another year, another opportunity, another chance to start over. At 20, life feels wide open. Mistakes seem temporary because there is always enough time to recover. Dreams are large, possibilities are endless, and the future appears generous. At that age, most people assume they will eventually become who they want to be. Success, fulfillment, and purpose all seem to belong to a future that is simply waiting to arrive. Then life begins to happen. Responsibilities appear. Relationships demand attention. Unexpected problems consume time and energy. Slowly, the future that once felt limitless begins to shrink. At 30, the dreams are still alive, but they are no longer the center of attention. There is always something more urgent to deal with. The life you wanted remains somewhere in the background. Many people tell themselves they will focus on their real goals later. Later becomes a comforting word. It removes the pressure to act today. The years continue to pass. The days feel long, but the years move surprisingly fast. Entire chapters of life disappear almost without notice. At 40, many people begin looking at the distance between the life they imagined and the life they actually built. The gap is often larger than they expected. Some compare themselves to old friends. Others compare themselves to former classmates, coworkers, or strangers online. Every comparison becomes a reminder of unfinished dreams. What hurts is not always the lack of money or success. Often the deepest pain comes from unrealized potential. It comes from wondering what might have happened if different choices had been made. The mind begins creating alternative timelines. In those imagined lives, courage arrived at the right moment. Opportunities were taken. Talent was developed instead of ignored. The problem is that these imaginary lives never faced real obstacles. They remain perfect because they were never tested by reality. At 50, another realization often appears. Some doors are no longer as easy to open as they once were. Certain opportunities belong to a specific season of life. This realization can create sadness, but it can also create anger. Anger toward ourselves for waiting. Anger toward circumstances. Anger toward people we believe influenced our path. Many people spend years searching for someone to blame. Parents, partners, employers, society, bad luck, or timing. Blame offers temporary relief because it explains the pain. But even when blame feels justified, it rarely changes anything. The years continue moving forward. Reality remains unchanged. Eventually, many people reach a moment of uncomfortable honesty. They stop asking who is responsible and start asking a more difficult question. What can still be done from here? By 60, the speed of life often becomes impossible to ignore. Looking backward feels almost surreal. Decades that once seemed enormous now appear compressed into a collection of memories. Many people find themselves wondering where the time went. They remember postponing important decisions, believing there would always be more time available later. One day, a painful thought appears. Perhaps some dreams are no longer possible. Perhaps some versions of life have permanently disappeared. This realization is difficult because society constantly repeats the same message. It tells us that it is never too late. It tells us that every dream remains possible. But reality is more complicated than that. Some opportunities are tied to youth. Some experiences belong to specific moments. Some possibilities genuinely disappear. Accepting this truth can feel devastating at first, yet refusing to accept it creates even greater suffering. We remain trapped, chasing a past that no longer exists. The goal is not to deny regret. Regret is a natural part of being human. Every life contains missed opportunities, wrong turns, and unfinished dreams. The real danger comes when regret becomes our permanent home. When we spend more time mourning the life we lost than living the life we still have. There is a profound difference between grieving a possibility and surrendering to it. One allows healing, the other keeps us trapped indefinitely. The truth is that while some possibilities have disappeared, others still remain. The future may be smaller than it once was, but it is not empty. You may never become the person you imagined at 20. You may never live the exact life you once dreamed about. That loss is real, and acknowledging it requires courage. But life is not measured only by what could have been. It is also measured by what can still be created with the time that remains. Perhaps it is too late for the life you once wanted. Perhaps that chapter has already closed. But it is not too late to create meaning, connection, wisdom, and purpose. The tragedy is not that some dreams become impossible. The real tragedy is allowing that realization to convince us that everything else is impossible too. The life you imagined may be gone, but the life you still have is here, waiting for your attention. And that may be more valuable than you realize.